Yetta, can we pause?
We can pause for a moment because we are on life's inside track.
Moving forward with the Dekker Team. Moving forward together with the Dekker Team.
We are honored to have created for you free access to over 603 Life's Inside Track episodes where we share insider tips, making house home, and how to really get the best out of your life. We're going to explore what to do, how to navigate when the timing is off in your relationship.
Ooh, that's an interesting one. Because your timing can be off in so many different ways, right? Like recently, we were having dance lessons. That was so good.
Dance lessons?
Dance lessons.
Yes.
And you might think, what's that got to do with real estate? Well, sometimes if your partner and you aren't on the same page, you know, one wants to move a foot forward towards buying something or selling something, and you're not there. Guess what happens? Somebody's foot gets stepped on, right?
Absolutely.
And
both figuratively and in reality.
Literally, yeah. And when you're dancing, what our instructor taught us is, you know, like I would raise my arm up, my left arm up, and what would that signal? Yeah,
that I get to do a spin and walk underneath it.
You get to do a spin, and I'd get to walk a little bit as we dance. And then sometimes your turn isn't quite where I'm at, or I'm not at the right spot, and we're on the same foot, which means then we're going to step on each other, right? We got to
we've done.
Yeah. And he said, just pause a beat, allow your partner to move. And he said, that's the male's responsibility, is the pause. I pause, allow you to take one more step, and then I start moving with you. And it worked well, right? Like it was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And so the pause can be very, very important. And if you're not on the same page, the timing of a pause in moving forward can allow you to get on the same page.
Absolutely. And we have right now, I think in most of our lives, what feels like a shortage of time. A shortage of time at work, a shortage of time in our relationships, a shortage of time to even look during the daylight hours at real estate properties that might come on the market.
So there's no time to pause. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it feels like there's no time to pause. So how can we navigate our relationship? It's actually by recognizing there's little teeny things we can do, like taking a short pause.
Yeah. And you know, that's... this is kind of funny because you quite often say, I'm not great at telling jokes, right?
Oh.
And you know what makes a joke?
Yeah.
It's the slight pause before the punchline.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't pause, or you pause too long, the joke isn't good.
Or if you say the wrong line, you give away the punchline before. I do that too. Yeah. And it's such a little teeny thing to create that pause or that momentary delay, as we might call it. It's an amazing thing in relation to relationship, in timing a relationship. So as we talk about real estate, sometimes people are frustrated by the lack of communication. Yeah. That's probably the biggest number one thing that we've heard again and again and again, not specifically of us, although we get it wrong sometimes too.
So what do we do most of the time? What's our purposeful intention when we're sending an email and we've answered the question, or we're doing, you know, we're sending important information? We pause and what's the last line? It's
what is next. This is what the next step is, because so often that's all we need to know. So that applies whether we're having a real estate conversation, whether we're having a conversation with our partner, even if we're having a difficult conversation where there's some volatility maybe and even a little bit of heated fellowship. If we can pause long enough to say what's next is, we're going to be okay. Right? And in relation to real estate, it might be what's next is you're going to call your mortgage specialist and get some answers before we even schedule an appointment. Now, that doesn't take any more time or a few seconds. However, it saves time on the other end. And now we don't have a catastrophic outcome where we're looking at the wrong properties and you fall in love with this thing that you can't buy.
Yeah.
Or worse yet, something like the agent believes, we've had this on a couple of our seller situations where the agent says they're pre-qualified, not a problem. You know me, you know my clients, you know that I take care of my clients and I make sure that everything's lined up. And you get these promises and I believe them because they're generally truth, but there's a miscommunication.
Right.
And now they can't actually afford the property.
So what we're saying is pause to get verification from the lender or the mortgage broker that what they're qualified to. And does that include their down payment or on top of their down payment? And how much down payment do they have? And are they able to scrape up other money if they do find something that's just right? And, you know, they were expecting to put 10% down, but maybe they got the money to pull from somewhere else to put 15% down if they really like the property, right?
Right.
So
yeah,
those kind of questions.
I just want to finish up the thought around
do.
when it doesn't happen for a client and it's our seller. Because it
okay.
happened recently, because you'll be thinking, well, are you delinquent or what? And yet what we were able to do in the most recent time doesn't happen very often because we're pretty diligent, but we were promised. And we were able to sell it for more the second time.
Oh, so, because it fell through, put it back on the market, and then we were able to sell it for more than the first one. So it's kind of like, well,
a little bit of frustration and loss of time.
Right.
And yet the time was worth the money because we got a greater return.
Right.
So sometimes what looks like bad timing, a bad situation, a waste of time, may actually turn out okay.
Right. So sometimes pausing to do something different is important. And what I'd love for you to do right now is pause in your busy day. You might be listening to this while you're doing something else. Pause and take a moment and connect with us. Send us a quick little email at together@dekkerteam.com. It takes like 1 minute. And just say you're listening. Just encourage us, or say, here's my question, or, you know, this conversation about the pause is really affecting me. I really appreciate it. You know, how else can I use a pause in my life? We're just about to go into that. Because one of the things that Yetta and I, you know, I don't know if we talk about it much, but we're into growth. That's a shared value. We like to grow, not just our garden outside, but grow mentally, grow in our knowledge and our wisdom. And we do that through reading and listening to books.
And implementing.
Yeah. And sometimes one partner will get ahead of the other person. And if you get too far, it can cause a real gap in the relationship, right? So sometimes the person that's way ahead may pause and re-listen. Like recently, you re-listened to a book with me. So we got on the same page on that book on a trip. We re-listened to it. And then there was a book that I listened to that you hadn't, that you said, okay, I'll listen to that on the drive and then we'll catch up. And also, you've been also much more diligent in your listening of books.
Right.
And so the other day we sat down and we paused and I said, okay, Yetta, I'm not going to catch up to you. And what I would like to do is you rate the 3 most important books you've listened to lately, and I'll commit to listen to those in the car and catch up on those 3 so that we get back on the same page. It's that pause, right?
Right. And so growth is a pause area. What are other areas in your life where you just need to pause for a moment? It's such a little thing inside relationship, and yet will change the relationship moving forward.
Yeah, Jean Smart is a smart person, I guess, because she said this, to me, a pause sometimes is the most important, most effective moment in a film or a play or anything else. So together, we're clarifying your options so that when they're clear, your wisdom will flow.
Moving forward with the Dekker Team. Moving forward together with the Dekker Team.